Wow. Look at that. Live.
What? Your toothbrush. Well, that's the thing about this place. It's even posher than you'd think, and yet all run down.
Run down?
Oh, yeah. Corridors and staterooms. Shocking. Chip paint, peeling wallpaper, stains, decorator. Can't help noticing.
Is that what you do?
Paint a decorator? You should hire me. You might need a glazier too. I broke a window this time.
Well, last time someone broke into Buckingham Palace, coincidentally, that person's name was Fagin. I guess we didn't have Google. We didn't have all this. We didn't. The only person that's broken in and spoken to the Queen's name was the same name as the head of the pickpocket gang in Oliver Twist. Cool. What an interesting world we live in. This is a different type of broadcast. Obviously, I'm not in Buckingham Palace. I'm just sending it there via Facebook. You'll excuse me, I'm clearing my throat, a little bit under the weather. My last name isn't Fagin, it's Wise. If you look around, we've been there for a while on that island, and now we find ourselves down here in Australia under wonderful guidance by King Charles at the moment. But there needs to be some things that we need to discuss with basically the interference from this whole digital situation. And so I'm trying to find equal terms to discuss this matter on. And I think just like somebody breaking into your house and doing all this and breaking a window, this is how I feel as well, with the way that this has all been distributed. I will notice as well in this, it seems like Queen Elizabeth had a phone next to her bed at a time when I don't think anyone else had a phone next to her bed, and I can understand why. But I wish to no longer have a phone next to my bed, and I wish to autonomously create a vision for my own family away from this paradigm of telephones. It's become very difficult for me to ignore the timings of the abdication of King Edward VIII, and then Elizabeth here, mummy to Charles's daughter to George VI. I'm getting very good at this. That all took place on radio and on telephones, and I think we can well and truly say, from my perspective anyway, and perhaps this might get down to get across to the other places within our society, that this is all a little bit ridiculous now. There seems to have been an attempt to kind of circumvent traditions and good order and good organization for rapid fire audio-visual spectaculars. It's probably the best way I can say that. And for a very long time, far longer than my life, and so this has been very difficult to kind of get across the whole thing, that this seems to have been kind of the status quo for global order, and echoing all the way and being demanded by politics. Well, I'm doing one better. For my family, I've claimed that mobile phone devices in the form like the concept formerly known as a smartphone, a little rectangle basically that you hold in your hand, should be reclassified immediately as a narcotic and a class A narcotic, and everything linked to it. This is a digital apps, mainly apps like Instagram, although I would like to get my content off there because that's where most of my production took place in order to destroy it. It could exist as a video. It's just mainly off the phones because the phones um, did something to our minds, and I would very much like some funding from the United Kingdom, from the Australian government, from the Defence Force, whoever would like to jump on board, to basically make this once and for all, to say that we know we shouldn't be holding other human beings in digital form in small rectangles in our hand. It created something very, very dangerous. And unlike the Queen, who has a lot of, or who had, or the current king, who has a large structure around them to make the radical decisions about other people's lives very, very real. And there's a lot of tradition and customs and things like this to make sure that they feel this. Most people are unbelievably unprepared to hold other people in their hands and their lives and futures and destinies and things like that. And this was a bridge too far, too quickly, too small, but too big. Too big a concept to bridge and too small a device to attempt that. I don't see any way forward. I don't believe they should be distributed in the way that they are. They're just basically a monstrous device, and they should be reclassified as a weapon. And I realize that this obviously more than likely isn't going to happen in the greater globe. But the reason I've decided to address this again to the royal family and to do this little thing where I pretend I've broken in by playing the crown is because my family is here on the blessing, I don't even know, of the crown 180 years ago. And so that's the only real place that I need to address. I don't exactly know how legally this should be done, but I will be looking to the property that my father's estate is currently holding is not appropriate for the for what I need to do in order to defend myself against a government and a system that has continued to project this as the norm, as the status quo. And my reclassification for my family makes it very difficult for me to progress forward, and so I probably will more than likely be having to get a property that is more able to be defended and is more although I may not, but basically I want to exist within a paradigm where that is respected, as I hope the funding comes in order to do the actual research that's required to scientifically or to officially claim that yes, a small rectangular device that holds human beings in your hand has created a lot of death and destruction across the world. I'd say similar to heroin or ice methamphetamines, and so I'm pretty serious about this. I will be returning. Luckily, in Australia, we have a wonderful physical currency that actually has a lot of it has the Queen on it, Queen Elizabeth, and a few of them I've even seen. The new ones have King Charles on, which is wonderful. I will probably need to organise some of those to buy things that I need. And so I need some type of arrangement um, with the Crown, with the Australian government, to have physical currency. I need to redesign my way out of the assumed paradigm of really only in my family. It's really only my mother. My father was absolutely horrified by all this and never would have participated in it. He didn't have a smartphone. He didn't really even believe in using credit and things. We did a little bit, but I just am sick of it. I'm sick of the attachments it has with it. It makes it almost impossible for me to do any type of long-term planning. And I don't think we should live in a world where the only people that can do long-term planning is the Crown. I thought you were supposed to be kind of the excuse me, the example. And there's no need for this really in it. And so, yeah, I'm a little bit lost now. You have to excuse me. But there has to be a clear divide between those who wish to go forward in the digital nonsense economy, which I think is what it boils down to. And I think the royal family, the traditions that they maintain, the customs they maintain, the kind of oversight and example and what was I heard? There was a recent thing where you counted the amount of swans. I'll remember it soon. Conservation, I suppose, like of that isle. This digital marketplace has there's no need for it. And I think I really am kind of betting with my life and my children's life on this fact, and that lots of people will agree. And so I want something to be there as an alternative, and I want it to be law. I was not trying to I wasn't trying to commercially distribute information in anything I was doing. I was being a person, and I was doing that. I was projecting that person digitally. And so the fact that I had laws used against me, which took my freedom away from me for 9 months, and took my children away from it because I was being a person and digitally projecting that for no commercial gain, I believe is probably the most dangerous thing in the world. And it shows what people are considering these devices as. They are the window with the red light on in a lot of people's minds. Not in my mind. I used it as a rehearsal space because I was a musician, and I used it as a place to promote my very physical products, but myself I was not intended to be one of those products. And I think within my case shows the dangerous perception that people not participating in the creation of content are having over the individuals they are holding in their hand. I've been going over this for 2 years now. There's a lot more substantial information in other places. But I thought, considering, Parliament's reopened, I'm not going to go to any politicians because I haven't heard back from them. And that's really worrying. And I'm not going to mention whether I've heard directly back from anyone from the royal family, but let me just say that I feel their presence behind me the entire time is the best way to say that. I have never felt unsupported by the royal family. And so that is where I project to. I basically don't acknowledge a government that doesn't take seriously enough an allegation and an accusation that is as large as what I'm making, and with as much dedication that I've made, and with as much consistency, and with as much effect it has had on my own life. These are my children we're talking about. This used to end in death, and it's still yet to be seen whether my decision to not act violently against my children being stolen is the right one. So I think it's in the interest of the royal family to maintain order. And it is from their example that I have, hopefully, re-established some sanity in this region, and I have no intention. There's basically nothing I want from that system. I want maybe like bulk thing like grain and sugar and like things like this. I don't want Uber Eats. I don't want really Netflix. I can go and buy a physical DVD. Like, I don't want almost anything except the library, really, of information that it is. Now, libraries used to be government funded, and they still exist. But I think there is a greater discussion that needs to take place about the whole thing. And it should be there. We step in and say we're going to ban social media for kids and things like this. Yet I've now repurposed my social media as basically my house and my diary and the place where I can maintain order, because we live in a more digital world. So now, according to the Australian Labor Party and the e-safety commissioner, it is now illegal for my youngest son to see me even in the digital environment, which leaves him, in my opinion, radically underprepared to defend against this digital onslaught of mass distribution of weaponized technology. That's a mouthful. And I think there's one thing you can see from all of this is that I'm not participating in something fickle or aggressive, or like I've found quite an interesting way to do this. I think it's been quite respectful. I unfortunately was not lucky enough to be brought up in certain circles, enough of it. My father instilled enough respect and manners and things like that. But I also have lived. I was a construction worker. There's all this. I have both of these within me, and sometimes I do find it a little bit difficult to perfectly present, especially while broadcasting, where I don't know if I'm in an environment that is requiring those things. I have no real problem, although some of it I just am oblivious to because I obviously wasn't raised very much like that. And so basically I'm saying that I think I've been very respectful in the way that I've presented this, considering it is a very large issue. And I would now really appreciate a clear directive of how to proceed forward without creating something very dangerous, very, very destructive. And so basically I'll put it again. I direct everything that goes to the Crown, to the Governor General. And unfortunately, Ms. Moyston, I believe that it's going to fall onto you in order to present something that's satisfactory for myself, and then in turn anyone else who's feeling like this. And I think that portion is going to be far larger than we imagine, especially once it is presented properly by someone that isn't, or that hasn't been kind of fighting a war for the last 5 years. And that is where we are. I'm trying off the top of my head to think of an analogous example. I suppose it would be religion. I think it's going to have to be religion. It's like this is a religious moment. There needs to be a separation between those who believe that it is responsible to distribute human beings' digital presence into handheld devices without exposure to the person holding it. See, anything I consume except, and let's just say it, except for pornography, which has always been there, and you know what I mean? So it's like there is pornography, and then there is like everything else that is kind of becoming a type of pornography that didn't used to be pornography. And that's basically what I'm saying. So there is it's pornified the world. It's commodified people. And I believe that this needs to be addressed immediately and very seriously and far differently than a lot of people are claiming. I don't have a problem with social media. I have a problem with mobile phone usage of social media. It is, and this is where it gets very strange, because that is an unholy communion of, say, the Meta with Instagram and the device producers of, say, Apple. It's the trifecta of that in a tumultuous environment that just becomes a drug. Almost like we have examples of this with certain psychedelic drugs where you have to combine two things in order for them to work. Instagram on a computer is not destructive because you're not holding it in your hand. As soon as you take Instagram and you hold it in your hand, that's where it becomes destructive. Neither party really has total control over that. They're working unbeknownst to each other to create the drug that is negative. And then you install money into that. That's it there. That's the unholy trinity of, I suppose you call it the beast, is digital payments, handheld, mobile device, smartphone, and social media, or a social shopping center for human beings. So yeah, this is longer than I was expecting it to be. But in this way, because I wish basically to say that, well, something that has been used to maintain this illusion that my children are in is because they've been bought phones. It's like, well, no, I'm reclassifying that. I'm saying you've actually tried to install my children in this system that I'm actively fighting against, and you've done it under the influence of alcohol, both of you, and you've done it under the example of you using that in a destructive way. I can't see how this isn't enough to take the children away from those two individuals and start the process of questioning them as to what they exactly believe they're doing. I have plenty there. I've said everything that I'm doing. And there is no way forward. There's no business enterprise or anything like this, or employment opportunities that are going to be appropriate while this is hanging in the air. I am very, very frustrated with this continuous advancement paradigm being thrust into my entire generation by the older generation, and it benefiting them and severely hindering us. We're not going to use it. I think it's going to be the boomer generation, the older generation, that are going to be the strange individuals holding onto their phones in this paradigm, because I believe they they thought it was their God-given retirement right to consume the lives of young, in some cases underage, and in some cases like very, very young, very vulnerable individuals in the form of digital. And they thought that they were being blessed for their contribution to the country, I'm guessing, in this. And this is an absolutely disgusting and unacceptable de-evolution of humanity. And of course it is, because the problem is we're continuously told that things were better back then. So no, they weren't. They weren't. Some things were better in some places, but no, the majority of people from that generation were a lot worse, with lots of things that we've changed. And their usage of these digital tools and devices is atrocious. No one at any point decided to on-flow or jump onto my argument and say, yeah, this is something that we should look at. In that cohort of my family, they just pretended it wasn't happening. They think it's our creation, but we were given these things by that generation. And I'm saying I'm destroying that paradigm. If my children wish to continue to use handheld mobile devices that their stepfather, who's an alcoholic, gave them, then, do you know what I mean? Then I can't control their lives once they're adults. They can do whatever they want. But that is the paradigm I'm saying. And then I can be free to re-jump onto whatever exists outside of that paradigm, use the expertise and the professionalism that I showed pre-mobile phone and even during mobile phone, in order to like really seriously address this and get back to doing something productive with my time, my energy, my finances, and my resources. And the authority that I believe gives me the right to say this is my dedication to this solely to this concept voluntarily for a very long time. And it's going to be very telling as to how the whole Commonwealth, I'll say the Commonwealth, handles what I've done, because I don't want to live in a place that doesn't hold that very highly, that type of behavior. And I believe that under the example by King Charles and the royal family and their line way back, and the example of all monarchs and the evolving, history of Great Britain and the British Empire and all these things, that I don't believe we'd live in a place where that is not going to be acknowledged and respected. And so I want to know. I want to know really how to proceed with all this. So yeah, on that note, at 28 minutes 07, I'll play the rest of this. Wonder what happens now. I'll let it go to half an hour.
Last time was you too.
Yeah.
What is the matter with you? This is private property.
No, it's not estate property.
Either way, you're trespassing.
Which isn't a crime. Well, I don't steal anything.
You stole a bottle of wine last time.
I need to work up the courage to speak to you, because I've tried everything else. Writing letters, speaking to my MP, fat lot of good any of that did. Mirage of democracy. So I've come to you, the head of state. You're my last resort. Someone who can actually do something.
What is it you'd like me to do?
Save us all from her.
Who?
Thatcher. She's destroying the country. We've got more than 3 million unemployed. That's more than at any time since the Great Depression. Doesn't that bother you?
Yes, it bothers me greatly. But there's nothing I personally can do about it. When you've been in my position as long as I have, you see how quickly and how often a nation's fortunes can change. Joblessness, recession, crises, war, all of these things have a way of correcting themselves. Countries bounce back.
Countries do bounce back, and they do have a way of correcting themselves. And I hope that my presentation is perhaps the beginning of one of those ways that we bounce back and we send a clear message across the Atlantic to the United States that we we are insulated from their destructive technologies and their break-in to our empire.